Hey, it's Echo. Welcome back to Echocraft. Tonight's stories aren't for the faint of heart. They are scandalous tales from r/relationships, some that spiral out of control, cross boundaries, some secrets, and some betrayals no one could see coming. Don't forget to subscribe and drop a like if you want to see more videos like this. Settle in, get comfortable, and let's begin. Story 1. I slept with my fiancé's father, and I don't know how to live with it. I don't even know where to start. I know what I did was wrong. There's no way to spin this, no way to make it sound like anything other than what it is. I betrayed the man I was supposed to marry, and I destroyed a family that had welcomed me in like their own. It started 2 years ago. I was 26 when I met Daniel. He was everything I thought I wanted in a partner. Calm, steady, loyal, the kind of man who didn't play games. We met through work. I was doing graphic design for a real estate agency, and he was a project manager in a related firm. We hit it off instantly. He wasn't flashy or loud, just quietly confident. When we started dating, it felt easy in a way my past relationships hadn't. Within a year, we moved in together. By the end of the second year, he proposed. I said yes. His family was warm and close-knit, his mum, his younger sister, and his dad, Richard. From the beginning, Richard stood out. He wasn't what I expected. I thought he'd be intimidating, some gruff older man with traditional values. But he was charming. The kind of man who made everyone feel comfortable. The kind of man who looked you in the eye when he talked to you and made you feel seen. He was 54, tall, well-kept, and confident in that effortless way that only comes with age. The first time I met him, I noticed how much Daniel took after him. Same smile, same mannerisms. Except Richard had something else. A presence. A magnetism. I brushed it off. I was in love with Daniel. I still am in some twisted way. The shift happened slowly. A comment here, a glance there. It started with harmless teasing. Him calling me kiddo one day, then beautiful the next. I'd laugh it off. So would Daniel. His dad was just playful. But there was an undertone to it. The kind that makes you feel something you don't want to acknowledge. Then, last spring, I started helping Richard's wife, Daniel's mum, redesign their home office. I'd go over a few times a week to measure, pick out samples, discuss colours. Sometimes she wasn't home, and Richard would be there alone. We'd talk over coffee. Nothing inappropriate at first. He'd tell me stories about his youth, his regrets, his marriage. One day, he said, "You remind me of someone I used to know." I asked who. He said, "Someone I should have held on to. I should have left then. I didn't." One night, Daniel had to work late, and Richard called asking if I could stop by to drop off some design swatches his wife wanted to see in the morning. I said sure. When I got there, the house was dark except for a single lamp in the living room. He was sitting there with a glass of wine. I told him I'd just leave the samples and go. He told me to stay for a drink. I said no. He poured me one anyway. We sat there talking, awkward, polite, careful. But the air was thick. Every sentence felt like it was balancing on a wire. I don't even know who moved first. Maybe it was both of us. Maybe it had been building for weeks, and that was just the moment it snapped. It wasn't romantic. It wasn't even passionate. It was desperate. And the second it was over, the guilt hit like a freight train. He tried to talk to me afterward. I wouldn't listen. I ran out, went home, took a shower that didn't make me feel clean. When Daniel came home that night, he kissed me and asked how my evening went. I said, fine, and nearly threw up. I swore it would never happen again, but it did. A week later, Richard texted me. Something simple like, "We need to talk." I ignored him. Then he sent another, "Please." I can't stop thinking about it, and I wish I could say I was strong enough to block him. But I wasn't. We met again, and again. Always secret, always careful. It went on for 3 months. We'd meet at a small hotel halfway between our neighbourhoods. He told me he felt alive for the first time in decades. I told him I felt sick every time I looked at myself in the mirror. It ended when Daniel's mum found out. She didn't find messages or photos, she found us. One afternoon, she came home early from visiting her sister. I'll never forget the sound of her voice when she said my name. It wasn't anger, it was disbelief. I begged her not to tell Daniel. I told her it was over, that it had been a mistake. She didn't say a word. She just walked out. That night, Richard called to say he'd told her everything. The truth, the guilt, the shame. He said she'd kicked him out. I told him never to contact me again. She never told Daniel. It's been almost a year. Daniel and I are still together. The wedding's been postponed twice. First because of finances, then because I said I wasn't ready. He thinks I'm just stressed. He has no idea. Sometimes I catch his dad looking at me across the room during family gatherings. There's no flirtation anymore. Just this heavy, wordless tension that I can't escape. His mum won't look me in the eye. I know what everyone would say. Tell him. End it. Let him hate you. Let the truth come out. But every time I imagine it, I see my mum's face when she finds out. His mum's heartbreak all over again. The way his sister would never forgive me. So I do nothing. I wake up next to Daniel every morning and feel like a ghost. I tell myself I love him, because I do. But I also know I've ruined it beyond repair. He deserves better. He deserves someone pure. Someone who doesn't flinch when his dad calls. I can't fix what I did. I can't confess without detonating every life around me. So I live in this strange purgatory, engaged, loved, forgiven by everyone except myself. That's my confession. I slept with my fiancé's father, and every day I pretend it didn't happen. But it did, and it always will. Story 2. My husband thinks our baby is his, but it isn't. I don't know how to start this without sounding like a monster, but I guess that's what I am. My husband thinks our baby is his. He looks at her like she's the light of his life, and every time he does, I feel my chest cave in a little more. Because I know the truth. We've been together for 8 years, married for 5. My husband Evan is a good man, patient, kind, the sort of person who still leaves notes on the fridge just to make me smile. We met in our mid-20s, when I was still wild and impulsive. He grounded me in a way no one else ever had. We built a quiet life together. A small house, a garden, routines that felt safe. But the problem with safety is that sometimes it starts to feel like suffocation. Last year I started a new job at a tech startup. Fast-paced, intense, full of late nights and close quarters. That's where I met Leo. He was one of those people who fills every room, quick, sharp, magnetic. The kind of man who knows he's dangerous but can't help himself. We didn't start out flirting. It just happened, like static building up over time. It began with inside jokes in Slack messages, late-night brainstorming sessions that turned into personal talks. He'd tell me about his failed relationships, about how he envied people who could just be steady. I'd laugh and say I envied the opposite, the chaos, the rush. We both knew what we were doing long before anything happened. The first time was after a company happy hour. Everyone else had left. He offered to walk me to my car, and when we got there, he said, "You know, you never talk about your husband." I said, "You never ask." And then I kissed him. It was supposed to be a one-time mistake. I told myself that over and over, but it wasn't. For 3 months it went on. Hotels, his apartment, once even in the office after hours. It felt like stepping into another version of myself. Reckless, alive, shameless. I'd go home to Evan afterward and try to wash it off in the shower like it would rinse away the guilt. Then one morning I threw up. At first I thought it was stress. Work had been crazy, I hadn't been eating right. But when it happened again and again, I knew. I bought a test during lunch. I stared at it in a bathroom stall until my vision blurred. Positive. Evan and I had been trying for months before that, with no luck. I should have felt joy, relief. But instead, I sat there shaking, whispering, "No, no, no." The timeline didn't make sense, it could have been either of them. But deep down I knew. I just knew. When I told Evan, he cried. Actual tears of happiness. He lifted me up and spun me around saying, "We did it." I wanted to tell him the truth right then. But I didn't. I couldn't. Because the way he looked at me, like I'd given him the world, it broke me. I told Leo a week later. He froze. Then he said, "You're sure it's mine?" I said I wasn't, but his face told me he believed it. He said he wanted to be part of it, that he couldn't just pretend nothing happened. I panicked. I told him it wasn't his, that he needed to forget everything. He didn't take it well. For weeks he kept texting, calling. I started avoiding him at work, switching meetings, pretending to be sick. Eventually he got the message and stopped. He quit the company 2 months later. The pregnancy was complicated. Not physically, but emotionally. Every ultrasound, every doctor's visit, I kept waiting for the truth to explode out of me. I'd lie awake at night next to Evan, imagining his reaction if he ever found out, that slow look of betrayal spreading across his face, the one that says, "You were supposed to be the safe one." Our daughter was born 7 months ago. She's beautiful, soft dark hair, wide brown eyes. Evan says she looks just like me, but sometimes when she makes a certain expression, my stomach twists. Because she doesn't look like me, she looks like him, Leo. He doesn't know, not for sure, but I think he suspects. He sent me an email after she was born. Just one line, "She's beautiful." No signature, no context, just that. I deleted it, but I never replied. Now, every day feels like a balancing act. I love Evan, I do, but I can't look at our daughter without seeing the truth stitched into her face, and yet she's innocent. She didn't ask for this. She deserves to be loved without conditions, so I love her the best I can. I just wish I didn't have to lie to do it. Sometimes I imagine coming clean, sitting Evan down, telling him everything, the affair, the uncertainty, the truth I've been burying. But I know what would happen. It would destroy him. It would destroy us. And maybe that's what I deserve. But here's the cruel part. He's the perfect father. The kind of dad who sings her lullabies off key, who gets up at 3 a.m. just to rock her back to sleep, who looks at me across the nursery and whispers, "We made something beautiful." And he's right. We did. Even if half of her comes from someone else. Every day I tell myself I'll take the secret to my grave, that protecting him, protecting her, matters more than my guilt. But then she'll look up at me with those brown eyes, and I'll see his face again, and I'll wonder how long I can keep pretending. My husband thinks our baby is his, and I'll spend the rest of my life paying for the fact that she isn't. Story 3. My wife's boss got her pregnant, and I'm still pretending to be the father. I used to think infidelity was something that happened to other people. Couples in movies, strangers in online posts, not us. We were the solid ones. We were the couple everyone else said they envied. 10 years together, 6 married, a mortgage, a golden retriever, a rhythm that felt permanent. Until one night shattered it. It started with her new job. My wife, Mara, had been struggling to find something fulfilling after years in admin work. Then she landed this position at a marketing firm. Her boss, Jason, was one of those confident, smooth-talking types who always seemed a little too interested in her. I noticed it the first time she showed me a picture of their team on a company outing. He was standing just a little too close. His hand was on her shoulder. It bugged me, but I didn't say anything. I trusted her. At first, everything seemed great. She came home glowing, energized, full of stories about the office. "Jason's a great leader," she'd say. "He really believes in me." I wanted to be supportive, but over time, it started feeling like she worked for him in every way. Late nights at the office, weekend strategy sessions, a work trip that somehow turned into 3 nights instead of 1. She always had an excuse. Then she started pulling away from me. Little things. She stopped reaching for my hand when we watched TV, stopped asking me about my day. She was distracted, living in a world that didn't include me anymore. I tried to talk to her about it once gently. She said, "You're overthinking it." Then one night I woke up at 2 a.m. to find her sitting in the living room crying. When I asked what was wrong, she said she was just stressed. I held her. She let me, but it felt like hugging someone through glass. A few weeks later, she told me she was pregnant. I was shocked, not unhappy, just surprised. We hadn't really been trying. Asked how far along, and she said, "About 6 weeks." I smiled. She didn't. Something in her tone that day stuck with me. She said all the right things. "I can't believe it. We're going to be parents." But there was this hesitation in her eyes, like she was saying lines from a script she didn't believe in. I tried to ignore it. I told myself I was paranoid, that I'd watched too many Reddit stories and let them get into my head, but the feeling didn't go away. Then 2 months later, I found the message. She'd left her laptop open. I wasn't snooping. Not at first. I was looking for a file we both needed for taxes. But when I clicked on the documents folder, a chat notification popped up. It was from Jason. The message said, "I can't stop thinking about what could have been." My heart stopped. I scrolled up. There were dozens of messages. They'd been careful, no explicit words, nothing incriminating, but the tone said everything. Late night check-ins. I miss you. Wish things were different. The last one was from a few days before she told me she was pregnant. I confronted her that night. She didn't deny it. She just sat there crying, whispering, "I'm sorry." I asked if the baby was mine. She didn't answer. That silence told me everything. She begged me not to leave. She said it was over, that she'd ended things the second she found out she was pregnant, that she didn't even know if it was his. She said she wanted to fix things, that she couldn't live with herself if she lost both of us. I didn't say anything. I just stayed. Maybe that makes me weak. Maybe it makes me pathetic. But I couldn't walk away. I still loved her, or at least the version of her I thought I knew. I told myself I'd wait for the paternity test. But when it came time to take it, she cried and begged me not to. Said she couldn't handle it emotionally, that she needed to believe we were starting fresh. I gave in. 9 months later, our daughter was born. She's perfect. Tiny. Soft. Pure. She doesn't look like me. She doesn't look unlike me either. Just ambiguous enough that I can pretend. But every time I hold her, I feel the lie pressing against my chest like a weight. I love her. God, I love her. And that makes it worse. Jason left the company right after Mara's maternity leave ended. She said it was a coincidence. I know it wasn't. Sometimes I'll see her glance at her phone a little too long. Sometimes I'll catch her staring at our daughter like she's wondering the same thing I am. People tell me I'm a great dad. They say I'm patient, devoted. I guess I am. Because despite everything, I've chosen to stay. To raise this child as my own. To protect her from the mess that brought her here. Mara and I don't talk about it anymore. We've buried the truth under diapers and baby smiles. But it's still there, humming quietly between us. Some nights, when she's asleep beside me, I lie awake watching the baby monitor, wondering what kind of person I've become. The kind who forgives, the kind who denies, or just the kind who's too scared to face what's real. Story 4. I cheated on my girlfriend with her twin sister, and I can't tell them apart anymore. I know how bad that sounds. I know there's no way to explain this without sounding like a complete piece of garbage, but it happened, and now I can't tell where one lie ends and the next begins. My girlfriend, Emily, and I have been together for almost 3 years. She's kind, sharp, ambitious, the sort of person who plans everything 3 steps ahead. She's also a twin. Her sister Emma is, well, she's the opposite. Reckless, flirtatious, always chasing chaos. When I first met her, I thought she was funny. A little too bold, maybe, but harmless. The first time I met the twins' parents, I thought I was hallucinating. They were identical, not just in looks, but in mannerisms. The same laugh, the same way of tucking their hair behind their ears, the same freckles on the left cheek. The only real difference was their energy. Emily was sunlight. Emma was fire. From the beginning, Emma liked to push boundaries. She'd make little comments like, "If Emily ever messes up, you know where to find me," and laugh like it was a joke. I'd laugh too, because what else do you do? But over time, it stopped feeling like a joke. One weekend, Emily went out of town for a conference, and I stopped by her apartment to water her plants. Emma was there. She had a key, of course. She said she'd been helping herself to the wine. She was tipsy, loose, wearing one of Emily's oversized shirts. I told her I'd just water the plants and go. She said, "Stay for a drink." I should have left. God, I should have left. We sat on the couch, talked about nothing. Childhood stories, how hard dating had been for her, because people always compared her to Emily. She said, "You pick the right twin." I said, "You're both amazing," she smirked. "Then why not both?" It happened fast, there wasn't even time to think. 1 second we were laughing, the next she was kissing me, and I didn't stop her. When it was over, she said, "Now we're even." I asked, "For what?" She said, "For every time she beat me at something." I didn't understand. I still don't. I left without saying goodbye. I spent the next day in a fog, replaying it over and over. I wanted to tell Emily, but how do you tell someone you love that you slept with her mirror image? Then things got worse. A week later, Emily came back. She kissed me at the door, same soft lips, same smell, same everything. But for half a second, my body froze. I couldn't tell if it was her. It was, of course. But that moment broke something in my head. Emma started texting me. Nothing direct, just subtle digs. "How's my sister? Did she miss you?" Bet she did. I told her to stop. She didn't. Then one night, she showed up at a party we were both at. She looked identical to Emily. Same outfit style, same hairstyle, same perfume. She cornered me in the kitchen and whispered, "Do you ever get confused?" My stomach dropped. I couldn't answer. She smiled like she already knew. Since then, I've been living in constant panic. Every time Emily hugs me, every time she leans in to kiss me, there's a flash of guilt, a flicker of fear that somehow Emma's watching, or worse, that she'll tell. A few weeks ago, it almost happened again. Emily invited her sister over for dinner. We cooked, we drank, and for a brief moment I felt almost normal. But after Emily went to shower, Emma looked across the table and mouthed, "Do you miss me?" I couldn't even look at her. I thought about confessing that night, but confessing would mean losing everything. Emily would leave, her family would hate me, and Emma. She'd probably enjoy every second of the chaos she caused, so I'm trapped in this sick secret where every smile feels fake, every touch feels wrong. Emily keeps talking about getting engaged. I keep imagining the look on her face if she ever finds out. Sometimes I wonder if Emma planned it, if she wanted to ruin things for her sister, or maybe she just wanted to prove she could. Either way, I let her. Story 5. I was sleeping with my neighbour while my husband was away until his wife found out in the worst way possible. It started small, like most mistakes do. Something that didn't feel like a mistake at first. My husband travels for work. He's gone 2, sometimes 3 weeks at a time, flying between cities, closing deals, living a life I only hear about through texts and quick video calls. I used to love the space, the quiet. I'd use that time to read, cook new recipes, paint. But somewhere along the line, the quiet started to feel hollow. The house felt too big, the bed too cold. Then there was Ethan. He lived next door with his wife, Mara. We'd been friendly for years. Barbecues, neighbourhood parties, helping each other carry groceries. He had that kind of easy charm that made everyone like him instantly. He'd wave when he mowed the lawn, bring over soup when I was sick. He was the kind of man who remembered birthdays, who checked in without it feeling intrusive. One night there was a storm. Thunder shaking the windows, rain coming down like it wanted to break through the roof. The power went out around 9. I was sitting in the dark, scrolling my phone, when there was a knock on the door. It was Ethan, holding a flashlight. He said Mara was stuck at work because of the weather, and he didn't want to ride it out alone. I laughed, said he was being dramatic, but I let him in. We lit candles, poured some wine, and talked. Not flirty, not at first, just 2 people trying to fill the silence. He asked about my husband's latest trip. I asked about Mara's job. Then, out of nowhere, he said, "Do you ever get lonely?" I hesitated. I said, "Sometimes." He nodded, said, "Yeah, me too." That silence that followed was louder than any thunder outside. When it happened, it didn't feel like crossing a line. Not in the moment. It felt like slipping, like falling into something you'd been standing too close to for too long. Afterward, we sat there in the candlelight, both of us breathing like we'd just surfaced from underwater. He said, "We can't do this again." I said, "I know." But we did. It became a pattern. When the lights were off, when no one was home, when the world felt small enough to keep secrets, we found each other. Sometimes in my kitchen, sometimes in his garage, sometimes in the half shadow between our houses where no one ever looked. It wasn't love exactly. It was need. It was loneliness finding its mirror. We never talked about Mara or my husband. It was like pretending they didn't exist made the guilt more bearable. We convinced ourselves it was harmless, that we were careful, that no one would ever find out. Then, one afternoon, the illusion cracked. I was in the kitchen making coffee when I heard shouting outside. Ethan's voice, then Mara's. I looked out the window and saw her waving her phone, screaming. He kept saying, "It's not what it looks like," which, of course, meant it was exactly that. Later I found out how she discovered it. I texted Ethan the night before. Nothing explicit, just, "I miss you." He'd fallen asleep, and she saw the notification pop up on his phone. Just my first name, no context, but it was enough. She opened it. She found everything. The messages, the photos, the one voicemail I'd been stupid enough to leave. That night she came to my door. I'll never forget the look on her face. Not rage, not shock, just this hollow kind of disbelief. like she was looking at a ghost of someone she used to know. She said, "You were my friend." And then she slapped me. Not hard, not dramatic, just enough to leave a sting. Then she left. Ethan tried to talk to me afterward. He showed up at my door twice, but I couldn't open it. I couldn't even look at him. My husband came home 2 days later, full of stories about his trip, smiling, tired, oblivious. I hugged him like my life depended on it, and maybe it did. Since then, the neighbourhood has changed. The air feels different. People look at me differently. Maybe it's in my head, maybe not. Mara filed for divorce. Ethan moved out a few months later. Their house is empty now, a "for sale" sign leaning slightly in the yard. Sometimes at night, I stand at the window and look at it. The curtains are gone, but the shape of their life still lingers. The outline of furniture and the carpet, the faint shadow of a family that used to be. My husband never found out. At least I don't think he did. But the thing about secrets is that they never really stay buried. They live in the pauses between conversations, in the way you flinch when someone says a certain name, in the ache you feel when you pass an empty house. Every time my husband kisses me goodbye for another trip, I feel that same hollow space open up inside me again. I fill it with chores, with friends, with noise, anything but silence. Because I know what waits there if I let the silence grow too loud. And sometimes, when the wind picks up just right, I swear I can still hear the echo of that storm, the one that started it all. Story 6. My girlfriend's best friend fell in love with me, and I let it happen. It's strange how betrayal doesn't always start with intention. Sometimes it begins with kindness, a shared joke, a conversation that goes a little too long, a look that lingers a second too late. You don't notice the line until you're standing on the wrong side of it, and by then, it's already too late to go back. When I met Lena, my girlfriend's best friend, I never thought of her as anything more than that, just Lena. The two of them had been inseparable since high school. They'd gone through college together, shared apartments, heartbreaks, secrets. By the time I came into the picture, I was simply an extension of their world. They both welcomed me in like I belonged. Lena was different. The kind of person who never seemed to need to impress anyone, but somehow always did. She was loud, funny, the first to call me out when I said something stupid, but always in that teasing, affectionate way. My girlfriend Hannah was quieter, more grounded, more serious. They balanced each other perfectly, and I used to admire that dynamic. It started subtly. Late-night hangouts after Hannah went to bed, just me and Lena on the balcony talking about music or movies. She'd steal one of my beers and say something like, "You know, you're good for her. She needed someone like you." I'd laugh and tell her I was lucky. She'd smile and say, "Yeah, you are." Then came the night it all shifted. Hannah was out of town for a work trip and Lena came over to borrow something. A book, I think. We ended up talking for hours. She told me about a breakup she'd never really gotten over, about how she felt stuck watching everyone else move forward while she stayed behind. I listened. I told her she deserved better. When she started crying, I hugged her. It was innocent. Until it wasn't. I don't know who leaned in first. Maybe it was both of us. Maybe it had been building for months, waiting for the right silence. When it happened, it wasn't frantic or reckless. It was slow, hesitant, full of guilt even as it happened. Afterward, she looked at me and said, "We can't ever talk about this." And I agreed. We didn't. Not for a while. But silence doesn't erase what's done, it just traps it in your chest until it has nowhere else to go. The next time I saw her, she acted like nothing had happened. Smiling, joking, hugging Hannah like always. I tried to match her energy, but my mind was spinning. Every time she laughed, I saw that night replaying behind her eyes. Every time Hannah kissed me, I felt like I was standing in quicksand. Weeks passed, months. I thought it would fade. That guilt would harden into distance and things would settle back to normal, but it didn't. Lena started texting me more often. Harmless stuff at first. Funny videos, memes, inside jokes that only the two of us would get. Then it got heavier. "I miss talking to you. Do you ever think about that night?" I ignored her, sometimes for days, but I always replied eventually. Because deep down I did think about it. All the time. Then came the night that broke everything. Hannah had thrown a small dinner party, a few close friends, including Lena. Everything felt normal. Laughter, music, wine. But halfway through the evening, I looked up and caught Lena staring at me. Not the casual, friendly kind of stare, the kind that burns, the kind that says, I still remember. After everyone left, Hannah went to bed. I stayed up to clean. I was in the kitchen when I heard the knock, soft, tentative. It was Lena. She'd forgotten her purse. I handed it to her at the door. She didn't take it right away. She said, I can't keep pretending. I told her she had to. She stepped closer. Do you really want to pretend this didn't mean anything? I should have stopped her. I didn't. The second time felt worse than the first, because this time I knew what I was doing. There was no confusion, no moment of weakness to hide behind. It was a choice. Afterwards, she told me she loved me. The words hung in the air like smoke. I didn't say it back. I couldn't. But I didn't push her away either. She kissed me one last time and left. The next morning, Hannah asked me why I seemed distant. I said I was tired. She smiled, kissed my cheek, and told me she loved me. I almost told her right then, but the words froze in my throat. I told myself I'd end it with Lena instead. I tried. I met her at a coffee shop a few days later. I told her we couldn't keep doing this, that it was wrong, that Hannah didn't deserve it. She looked at me and said, So what am I to you? A mistake? I said, No, but this can't continue. She laughed, bitter, hollow, and said, You already chose her. I just wanted to hear you admit it. Then she walked out. After that, she disappeared from our lives. No texts, no visits. She even stopped coming to the friend group events. Hannah noticed, of course. I think something's going on with her, she said one night. She's been distant lately. I said I hadn't noticed. Months went by. Then, one day, Hannah got a letter in the mail from Lena. No note, just a keychain they'd both bought years ago during a road trip. Hannah said, It's like she's saying goodbye. And I think she was. I still see her sometimes. Not in person, but in my mind. The balcony, the candlelight, that first quiet moment where everything changed. Hannah and I are still together, still happy on the surface, but I can feel the ghost of that night in every corner of our relationship. I used to think love and guilt were opposites, but I've learned they can live in the same space. You can love someone deeply and still betray them completely. You can mean every word when you say, I love you, even when you've already broken it. And sometimes that's the cruelest truth of all. Story 7. I slept with my brother's wife, and now she's pregnant. It started with grief. That's the truth, though it doesn't excuse anything. My brother Ryan lost his job last year, and his marriage was hanging by a thread. He and Sophie had been together for 7 years, married for 3, and somewhere along the line they'd stopped being happy. When I came back home after my own breakup, I thought I'd help him get back on his feet. Instead, I ended up destroying what was left of both of us. At first, it was just me being around, helping with repairs around the house, fixing the sink, watching their dog when Ryan went to interviews. Sophie was always there, quiet, polite, but visibly exhausted. She cooked dinner for all 3 of us sometimes, and I'd stay after Ryan went to bed. We'd talk in that half-whisper way people do when they're trying not to wake someone else. She told me she felt invisible, that Ryan had stopped looking at her, stopped touching her, stopped trying. I told her she deserved more. I didn't mean it to sound like I was offering myself, but I guess that's what it was. The night it happened was after one of Ryan's worst days. He'd been drinking, angry, convinced the world was against him. Sophie and I stayed downstairs while he slept it off upstairs. She started crying halfway through a sentence, hands shaking, saying she couldn't do it anymore. I held her. She didn't pull away. One second we were crying, the next we were kissing, and from there it just happened. It wasn't planned. It wasn't even passionate. It was desperate, messy, raw. When it was over, we sat in silence, unable to look at each other. She whispered, We can't ever tell him. I said, We won't. But things didn't go back to normal. Every look, every word carried this new, heavy meaning. I tried to stay away, but that only made it worse. The tension became unbearable. Every accidental touch felt electric and wrong at the same time. We started finding excuses to be alone. It happened again, and again, for months. Then Sophie told me she was pregnant. She said it in a whisper, eyes full of tears, hands shaking. I asked if she'd told Ryan. She said no. I asked if she knew whose it was. She said she couldn't be sure. Their marriage hadn't been completely sexless. But I knew. The timing lined up. I didn't say it out loud, but we both felt it. She said she'd tell him it was his, that it would be easier, cleaner. I nodded, but the thought made me sick. When Ryan found out, he was ecstatic. He hugged me, thanked me for being there for them, said I'd helped keep their family together. I smiled. I said I was happy for him, and that moment, that hug, it was like being buried alive. Now, months later, Sophie's belly is showing. Everyone's excited. My mum keeps saying it's a blessing after such a hard year. Ryan's finally working again. They're rebuilding. On the surface, it looks like everything's falling back into place, but every time I see Sophie, every time she looks at me, I can see the truth burning behind her eyes. She's carrying my child. My brother's wife is carrying my child, and I'm pretending it's his. I don't know what to do. I think about leaving town, starting over somewhere no one knows me, but that would raise questions. I think about confessing, but what would that even fix? It would destroy my brother, devastate my family, and ruin a child's life before it even begins. So instead, I stay quiet. I keep smiling. I nod when Ryan talks about baby names. I touch Sophie's shoulder and act like nothing ever happened. Some nights, I wake up in a sweat dreaming about the baby, wondering if it'll look like me, if Ryan will ever notice, if someday that child will grow up and feel like something doesn't quite fit. And I'll know why. Every lie I tell to protect my brother feels like another betrayal stacked on top of the first. But maybe that's the only thing I can do. Keep lying. Keep pretending. Because the truth would destroy everything. Story 8. I secretly read my girlfriend's journal, and what I found destroyed me. It happened by accident, or at least that's what I told myself the first time. I was looking for my phone charger, and it had somehow slipped behind her nightstand. When I bent down to grab it, I saw a small leather-bound notebook wedged between the books. Brown cover, elastic band, the kind of thing people carry for to-do lists or daily thoughts. I knew what it was immediately. I shouldn't have touched it. But curiosity has a way of whispering things that sound reasonable in the moment. Just one page, I thought, just to see what she writes about. I told myself it was harmless, that I'd close it right after. The first entry I read was dated 2 months earlier. It was about me, or at least it started that way. She wrote about how much she loved me, how safe she felt, how I made her laugh. I remember smiling. But then the paragraph shifted. She said she felt like something was missing, that she wanted more excitement, more passion, more spark. That word, spark, burned into me. I read another entry, and another. It was like watching my relationship unravel in slow motion through her handwriting. She wrote about feeling trapped, about not knowing if we were meant to last. Then, in one entry, she mentioned someone else, just an initial, M. That's when my stomach dropped. I flipped forward, pages shaking in my hands. She described him vaguely at first, a co-worker she'd met at a project meeting. She wrote that he was funny, confident, the kind of person who lights up a room. She wrote that she felt guilty for thinking about him, but she couldn't help it. She wrote that he made her heart race in a way I hadn't in a long time. I sat there reading for over an hour. Every line felt like another punch to the chest. When I closed the notebook, my hands were shaking. I put it back exactly where I found it, turned off the light, and lay next to her in bed. She was asleep, breathing softly, her arm resting across me. I stared at the ceiling, wondering how many nights she'd gone to sleep thinking about him instead. For the next few days, I couldn't stop replaying it in my head. Every time she smiled at her phone, every time she mentioned work, every time she laughed at something I didn't say. It all looked different now. I wanted to confront her, but how could I? I'd have to admit I read her journal. I'd have to confess the one thing that could make me as bad as what she'd done. So I waited. A week later, she told me she'd be working late. I knew what that meant now, or at least I thought I did. Around 10, I drove to her office. I sat in my car across the street, headlights off, waiting. When the building lights flickered out one by one, she came out. Alone, no one with her. She looked tired, not guilty, just normal. I went home feeling both relieved and ashamed. Maybe I'd been wrong. Maybe I'd read too much into it. Maybe Em was just a crush she'd gotten over. I tried to convince myself of that. For a while, it even worked. Then one night, she left her phone on the kitchen counter. A message lit up the screen. Just a single text. "I can't stop thinking about you." From Em. I didn't need to open it. I didn't need to read the rest. The journal had already told me everything. When she came back into the room, I asked, "Who's Em?" She froze. I'll never forget that pause. It was too long, too knowing. Then she said, "Just someone from work." Her tone was light, casual, but she wouldn't meet my eyes. That night, I didn't sleep. She rolled toward me in bed, tried to hold me, but I turned away. She asked if something was wrong. I said no. The next morning, I left for work early. I didn't go to the office. I parked in a grocery store lot and sat there for an hour, staring at the steering wheel, trying to decide if I wanted to keep pretending or finally face the truth. When I got home that evening, the journal was gone. The space between the books was empty. She must have noticed I'd touched it. I never asked. She never mentioned it. But from that day forward, something between us broke quietly. We still live together. We still talk, still laugh, still do all the small things couples do. But there's a distance now. A thin, invisible wall neither of us acknowledges. I don't know if she's still seeing him. I don't know if she ever stopped. Maybe I don't want to. I still catch myself looking at her sometimes. Really looking. And wondering how much of what I know is real, and how much I've imagined. Whether I destroyed us by reading that journal, or whether I just found the rot that was already there. Either way, the result's the same. Two people lying side by side, pretending they don't already know how the story ends. Story 9. My husband's business partner and I fell in love, and neither of us meant for it to happen. When you've been married for over a decade, love starts to look different. It's quieter, steadier. You trade passion for partnership, intensity for comfort. That's what I always told myself when I felt the emptiness creeping in. That what I had with Mark wasn't fading, it was maturing. That the long silences between us were just a sign of how well we knew each other. But silence can become a breeding ground for things you don't expect. Mark runs a small construction firm. He started it with his best friend Daniel, years before I met him. They built it from the ground up, working long hours, sweating through summers, dreaming of being their own bosses one day. I admired that about them, their loyalty, their grit. Daniel was around constantly. He and Mark were practically brothers. When I first met Daniel, I didn't think much of him beyond that. He was rugged, funny in a dry, self-deprecating way, the kind of guy who noticed everything but said little. He was also married at the time, though I never met his wife. She didn't come around much. I always thought he was just another piece of Mark's world, not mine. But that changed the year Mark started expanding the business. Suddenly he was gone all the time. Meetings, travel, conferences. He'd come home late, exhausted, distracted. He'd say, "Just a few more months and things will calm down." But they never did. Dinner conversations became one-sided. I'd ask about his day. He'd scroll through emails while answering. I told myself it was temporary. Daniel started coming by more often to drop off paperwork or tools. He'd stay for coffee, then dinner if Mark was running late. We talked, at first about the business, then about everything else. He was easy to be around in a way Mark hadn't been in years. He listened, really listened. He remembered small things. The kind of tea I liked, the book I was reading, even the day I'd said my mum's birthday was coming up. It wasn't flirtatious, not then, just connection. Something I didn't realise I'd been starving for. One evening, Mark was out of town and Daniel stopped by to drop off invoices. I invited him in for a drink, a small, harmless gesture. We talked for hours, about marriage, regrets, the way life never quite turns out how you expect. He told me he and his wife had separated months earlier. He hadn't told Mark yet. I didn't know what to say, so I just listened. When he stood to leave, there was this moment, that charged stillness you can feel before something happens. He looked at me like he wanted to say something, but didn't. I don't even remember who moved first. The kiss felt like it came from nowhere and everywhere at once. Afterward, we didn't speak for days. He stopped coming by. Mark didn't notice. He was too busy to notice much of anything. I thought maybe it was over. that we'd both felt the spark and scared ourselves straight, but then one night he texted, "I can't stop thinking about it." I deleted the message, but the damage was done. What followed wasn't some whirlwind affair full of stolen hotel rooms and grand declarations. It was quiet, careful. We didn't see each other often, but when we did, it felt inevitable, like gravity. Sometimes he'd stop by with some excuse, blueprints, contracts, things Mark didn't even need. We'd talk too long, stand too close. Every goodbye felt heavier. I hated myself for it. Every time Mark kissed me goodnight, every time he said, "Love you," I'd feel that split inside me widen. But Daniel wasn't some stranger. He was part of our life. He'd come over for barbecues, birthdays, holidays, and the more it went on, the more impossible it became to untangle the guilt from the want. It went on for nearly a year. Then, last spring, Mark and Daniel landed a huge contract, the kind of job that would secure the company for years. They were celebrating at our house, grilling steaks, drinking whiskey, laughing like old times. I watched them together, thinking how they still saw each other as brothers, how much faith Mark had in him, how much trust, and I realised I couldn't keep doing it. After everyone left, I told Daniel to meet me at the park down the road. It was late, dark enough that we could talk without being seen. I told him we had to stop. He didn't argue. He just looked at me for a long time, then said, "You're right." But the way he said it broke me, like it was both an ending and an apology. We stopped seeing each other after that, at least outside of group settings. I thought it would fade, that the distance would kill whatever was left, but it didn't. If anything, it made it worse, because now every interaction was a performance. Every handshake between Mark and Daniel made my stomach twist. Every time Mark said, "I don't know what I'd do without that guy," I wanted to scream. Then, a few weeks ago, everything nearly came crashing down. Mark left his phone on the kitchen counter while he was showering. A text popped up from Daniel. "You okay?" She looked upset yesterday. My blood ran cold. Mark didn't see it. He never even noticed. But I did. Daniel and I hadn't spoken privately in months. And somehow, that one message felt like the edge of a cliff. I deleted it, terrified it would lead to questions I couldn't answer. Since then, I've been living in this constant, suffocating fear, the kind that hums beneath the surface of everything. Mark and I are fine, at least on paper. We're stable, normal. But that's the worst part. It's too normal, too calm. I feel like I'm living in a glass house waiting for the first stone to fly. I don't see Daniel anymore, not really. He's still part of the company, still around for events, but we avoid each other like it's rehearsed. No eye contact, no private conversations, nothing. Yet sometimes, across a crowded room, I'll catch him looking at me. Not longing, not guilt, just a quiet kind of knowing. The kind that says, "I remember," even if no one else ever will. I think about telling Mark, about unburdening myself, confessing everything, letting the truth destroy whatever it has to. But every time I picture his face, that loyal, trusting face, I can't do it. I can't be the one to break him. So I keep living this half-life, loving a man who deserves more, haunted by the memory of another who knew too much. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if we'd met under different circumstances, if I hadn't been married, if he hadn't been Mark's brother in everything but blood. But life doesn't offer those clean hypotheticals. It just leaves you with what you did and what you have to live with afterward. And I'm still living with it, quietly, carefully, pretending not to notice how fragile everything really is. Story 10. I was the other woman for 5 years, and he still chose her. You always think you'd never be that person. The one who sneaks around, checks the clock before sending a text, memorizes excuses. You tell yourself you're better than that, until one day you aren't. Until you wake up and realize your entire world exists in the spaces between someone else's life. I met Eli at a friend's engagement party. He wasn't supposed to be there. He was filling in for a co-worker who couldn't make it. I wasn't supposed to be there either. I'd almost cancelled because I didn't feel like pretending to be happy for other people. But we both went, and somehow we ended up standing next to each other at the bar, laughing about how neither of us knew anyone. He had this quiet, magnetic confidence. Not loud or showy, just the kind that makes you lean in when he speaks. We talked the entire night. When the party ended, he asked if I wanted to grab coffee sometime. I said yes. He smiled, handed me his phone and said, "Put your number in, He didn't mention her. We went for coffee 2 days later, then dinner the next week, then a movie the week after that. By the time I found out he was married, I was already in too deep. He told me a story I've heard 1,000 times since, how the marriage had been dead for years, how they were living like roommates, how he'd been meaning to leave but didn't want to hurt her. He said she depended on him emotionally, that she'd fall apart if he left. I wanted to believe him, and I did. For a while, everything felt like a dream. We'd sneak away on his lunch breaks, meet in hotel rooms, talk for hours about everything and nothing. He'd bring me little gifts, a book he thought I'd like, a scarf he said matched my eyes, a mug from a city he'd visited for work. He always looked at me like I was the escape he needed. But every time he left, I felt the ache of what wasn't mine. I'd watch him walk out the door knowing he was going home to her and tell myself I could handle it. That love like ours was worth the waiting. It went on for 5 years. We had rules. No calls after 9, no texts on holidays, no showing up unannounced. But rules mean nothing when your heart's already compromised. I spent birthdays alone, pretending not to care. I watched anniversaries come and go, knowing exactly where he was and who he was with. He'd tell me he hated every second of it, that he thought of me the whole time. I wanted to believe that too. There were times I almost ended it, like the night I saw them together at a restaurant by accident. He was laughing, the kind of laugh that made his eyes crinkle. She reached across the table, touched his hand, and he smiled in that soft, familiar way that used to be mine. I went home, threw up, and blocked his number. He showed up at my door 2 days later in the rain, crying, saying he couldn't lose me. And I let him back in. That became our cycle, the leaving and returning, the promises and the silence. I told myself that if I was patient, he'd eventually choose me. He used to whisper, "It's just complicated right now, but I love you. You're my real life," and I believed him because I needed to. Then, last winter, he said he was finally leaving her. He'd told her about us, he said. It hadn't gone well, but he was moving out after the holidays. I was ecstatic. I started imagining what our life would be like. Waking up together. No more lies, no more waiting. And then nothing. Days went by without hearing from him. I texted. No response. I called. Straight to voicemail. 2 weeks later, I got a message. "I'm sorry. She found out everything. I'm trying to fix things." That was it. After 5 years, that was it. He disappeared completely after that. Changed his number. Quit his job. Deleted his social media. I found out through a mutual friend that he'd moved to another city. With her. They were working on their marriage. The night I heard that, I drove to the park where we used to meet. I sat on the same bench where he once told me he loved me, and felt absolutely nothing. Not anger, not grief, just emptiness. Because the truth had finally settled in. I'd built my entire world around someone else's scraps. It's been almost a year now. I've rebuilt parts of myself I didn't realise were gone. I've stopped checking for his name on every random number that texts me. But sometimes, when I'm lying in bed at night, I still hear his voice. That calm, careful tone he used when he said he loved me. And I wonder if he ever meant it, or if it was just another lie we both agreed to believe. I don't hate him. I wish I did. Hate is clean. It ends things. But this lives somewhere quieter, a lingering bruise under the skin. I think about her sometimes too, his wife, the woman I used to envy, then pity, then resent. I wonder if she knows he's still lying to her, or if she won. Maybe there are no winners in stories like this. Maybe love, when built on deceit, only ever leaves ruins behind. All I know is that I loved him in secret for 5 years, and he still chose the life that didn't include me. And that's a truth I'll have to carry for the rest of my life. Story 11. I fell in love with my best friend's girlfriend, and she fell in love with me too. I never meant for it to happen. I swear to God I didn't. If you'd told me a few years ago that I'd be the kind of person who betrays the one person who's always had my back, I would have laughed in your face. But love doesn't always announce itself with fireworks or declarations. Sometimes it slips in quietly, disguised as something harmless, until you realise you've crossed a line you can never uncross. My best friend Adam and I have known each other since we were kids. We grew up on the same street, shared everything: clothes, secrets, dreams. We went to the same high school, played on the same soccer team, got into the same college. He was like my brother, the kind of friend you think you'll grow old with. Then, during our junior year, he met Rachel. She was new to campus, transfer student, photography major, the kind of person who made everyone around her feel like they were the only one in the room. Adam was hooked from day one. He'd text me about her constantly, ask for advice on what to say, what to wear, how not to mess it up. When they started dating, I was happy for him. Genuinely happy. The first time I met her in person, she smiled at me and said, "So you're the famous best friend?" I laughed and said, "He's been talking about me, huh?" She said, "Non-stop." I liked her right away. Not in that way, not yet. She was funny, sharp, kind, the kind of person who actually listened when you talked. She made Adam better too. He was calmer, happier, less reckless. For a while, everything was perfect. Then things changed slowly, almost imperceptibly. Adam got an internship the following summer, one of those high-pressure, long-hour deals that kept him at the office from sunrise to sunset. Rachel stayed on campus for her photography program. I stayed too, taking summer classes. At first, I just helped her out, giving her rides to shoots, helping carry her gear, grabbing food after late study sessions. It was friendly, safe, until it wasn't. It was a Tuesday night when everything shifted. We were in the photo lab, editing her portfolio for a submission. The AC was busted, so the room was stifling. She was frustrated, swearing under her breath, hair sticking to her face. I reached over to help with her laptop and she laughed. That low, tired kind of laugh that happens when you've hit your limit. She looked up, and for a moment, we just stared at each other. That was the first time I realised how close we'd gotten. After that night, everything felt different. She'd text me more often, at first about school, then about life, random thoughts, little jokes, late-night confessions. I started waiting for her messages. I told myself it was just friendship, that I was being paranoid. But my heart didn't believe that. Then one night she called me crying. Adam had cancelled their weekend plans again because of work. She said she felt like she was dating a ghost. I told her he loved her, that he was just overwhelmed. She said, "You always defend him." I said, "He's my best friend." She went quiet for a long time before whispering, "Sometimes I wish he was more like you." That line broke something open in me. I should have stopped answering her messages after that. I should have stepped back. Instead, we started spending more time together. Coffee after class, long walks, late-night drives with the windows down and music too loud. It wasn't physical yet, but it was already betrayal. The night it finally happened, it was raining. We'd gone out to shoot photos of the storm for one of her projects. The rain got too heavy, so we ducked into an abandoned bus stop to wait it out. We were soaked, laughing, shivering. Then the laughter stopped. She looked at me and said, "I can't keep pretending I don't feel this." I said, "Neither can I." We kissed. It should have ended there. It didn't. For the next 6 months we lived double lives. When Adam was around, we played our parts. Me, the loyal friend. Her, the devoted girlfriend. But when he wasn't, we were together. It wasn't just sex, though. There was that too. It was more. Talking until sunrise, sharing fears, dreams, everything we couldn't say out loud. She told me she'd never felt seen like that before. I told her I'd never felt loved like that before. The guilt was unbearable, but the pull was stronger. Every time I thought about confessing, I'd see Adam's face, his trust, his loyalty, and I'd choke it down. Then one night, everything imploded. We were at a party, all three of us. Adam was drunk, happy, oblivious. Rachel and I were sitting on the porch when he came over, threw his arm around me and said, "You're the only person in the world I trust with her." She froze. I laughed too loudly. He didn't notice. But when he walked away, she whispered, "We can't do this anymore." I didn't argue. We both knew she was right. The breakup, if that's what you can call it, wasn't clean. It lingered. We tried to stay friends, failed miserably, drifted apart. She and Adam lasted another year before she finally ended it. He was devastated. I helped him through it. He never found out why she really left. It's been 5 years since then. Adam and I are still friends, though not the same kind. There's a distance now, something unspoken. Rachel moved away. She's married now, has a kid. Sometimes I see her posts online and wonder if she ever thinks about it. About us. I do, more often than I want to admit. People talk about forbidden love like it's thrilling, but they never mention the wreckage it leaves behind. The the sleepless nights, the hollow victories, the years of pretending it never happened. Loving her was the best and worst thing I ever did. Because even now, after all this time, part of me still loves her, and that part will never belong to anyone else. Story 12. I lied to my boyfriend about who I am, and now I'm trapped in my own fake life. I don't even know how to start this without sounding like a complete sociopath. It didn't begin as a lie. Not really. It started as a small omission, something harmless, something I told myself I'd fix later. But now, 2 years later, I'm living a life built on it. A house of cards that could collapse with a single question asked at the wrong time. I met Chris on a dating app. At the time, I was going through what I can only describe as a full-scale identity crisis. I'd just dropped out of grad school, I was living in a shared apartment I hated, working a job that felt like a dead end. Everyone I knew was getting engaged, promoted, or travelling the world, and I was stuck, broke, embarrassed, and terrified of being left behind. When I made the profile, I didn't lie exactly, I just edited myself. I changed my job title from assistant to project coordinator. I said I'd graduated when technically I hadn't. I'd left 2 credits short. I used older photos, back when I was thinner, more confident, more like the version of myself I wanted to be. It felt like a temporary costume. I figured if anyone actually liked me, I'd tell them the truth eventually. Then I matched with Chris. He was handsome, charming in that effortlessly warm way. He worked in environmental policy, which sounded impressive but not intimidating. He had this calm energy that made me feel safe, and when he asked me about my life, I panicked. Not because I wanted to lie, but because I didn't want to lose him. So I kept the act going. Our first few dates were perfect. He asked questions that made me feel seen in ways I hadn't in years. He was genuinely interested, the kind of listener who made you want to tell him everything, but every answer I gave felt like another brick in a wall I couldn't tear down later. Every time I said something about my job or degree, I told myself it wasn't really lying. It was just bending the truth. Then he told me he loved me. That should have been the moment I came clean. Instead, it became the moment I doubled down. We moved in together a year later. I got a better job, a real one this time, though still not what I'd told him. Every day I woke up and played the version of myself he thought I was. The confident professional, the successful graduate, the woman who had her life together. He was proud of me. He'd brag about me to his friends, about how hard I'd worked, how much I'd accomplished. Every compliment felt like a knife. I'd smile and nod and feel the guilt coil tighter. The worst part is we're actually happy, or at least he is. We laugh a lot, we cook together, we take weekend trips, we talk about the future, marriage, kids, a house. Every time he brings it up, my stomach twists, because how do you build a forever with someone who doesn't even know who you are? Then, a few months ago, the lie almost unravelled. We were at dinner with one of his colleagues, and the guy mentioned a mutual friend, someone who actually worked at the company I'd claimed to have left years ago. My blood went cold. Chris looked at me and said, "Did you ever meet her while you were there?" I smiled, lied again. The name sounds familiar. Afterward, I went to the bathroom, locked the door, and stared at myself in the mirror until I felt sick. I keep waiting for it to come out. I dream about it, him finding out, his face changing, the look of betrayal. I've drafted confessions in my head 1,000 times. I've even rehearsed how I'd start. There's something I need to tell you about who I really am, but I can't do it. Because I know that once I do, everything we've built disappears. And here's the part that really scares me. Sometimes I forget what's real. Sometimes I catch myself believing my own story. When he asks about my time in grad school, I can describe the classes, the professors, the projects, all of it fabricated but so detailed it feels like memory. I've told the lie so many times that it's become a version of me I can't separate from the truth. I'm not a bad person. At least I didn't think I was. I just wanted to be worthy of love. I thought if I could make him fall for the version of me I wished I was, maybe eventually I'd become her. But I haven't. I've just gotten better at pretending. He's talking about proposing soon. I know because I found the receipt for the ring in his jacket pocket last week. And now I'm paralysed. Because the moment he kneels down, the moment he says those words, I'll either have to lie again, say yes to a life I don't deserve, or tell the truth and lose everything. Every time he looks at me with that trust, that open love, I feel like I'm disappearing a little more. like he's in love with a ghost wearing my face. And maybe that's what I've become, the ghost of who I wanted to be, haunting the life I built out of lies, waiting for it all to finally collapse. And that's where we'll leave things tonight. The stories we've heard, the ones full of lies, longing, secrets and mistakes, they remind us that people are rarely just one thing. We're all a mix of good intentions and bad decisions, of love and fear and the small choices that change everything. If you're listening to this while winding down for the night, I hope you can let go of whatever's been weighing on you. Maybe you've made mistakes. Maybe you've been hurt by someone else's. Either way, the sun always comes up and life keeps moving forward. So take a deep breath. Let the day fade away. Thank you for spending your time here, for listening, for sharing the quiet with me. Until next time, this is Echo, and you've been listening to Echocraft. Sleep well, dream gently, and remember, even the darkest stories can lead us back to the light.